Good morning. We are here with Amado Cruz. He's a Puerto Rican who has a lot of things to say about what you can do. And if you want it, you can accomplish it. Tell me a little bit more about you, Amado Cruz. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I was born in Caguas, Puerto Rico in 1942. My mom decided that it's important for us to come to America, the land of opportunity. So she was working in hospitals, cleaning bedpans, and as a maintenance worker. And she saved money enough to send my older brother and I to LaGuardia Airport in New York. And then she sent my other three brothers and sisters. So we're five in the family. My mom then followed us to America. And we lived with my grandfather on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. It was a very, very shocking experience. I want young people to understand that there's cultural shock when we come to this country. We have a very difficult time making adjustments. They call it adaptation strains, but we suffer language barriers, we suffer food shock because there's different diets and there's different people. We suffer the fact that we're not accepted in terms of our skin color. I was called negrito by my mom, so I was the darkest one. So we suffer a lot of discrimination as we went along. And I think to me it's a challenge, and I want all the young people to understand if it wasn't for my mom working as hard as she did, I wouldn't be where I am. And I think that young people do owe generations the possibility that they will become something if they work hard at it and they remember that somebody put them here. I remember my mother working all the time. We didn't have a mom at home, but she was working for us. That's where I got my work ethic. My work ethic meant I had to be there and I had to be on time and I had to work hard to get to where I'm going. So I stayed in school. I worked very hard at what I did. I took on 6 or 7 jobs. Even when I was 7 years old, I was shining shoes on Main Street for 10 cents. I was picking fruits. I was selling fruit. I was working tobacco. I was working for moving companies. Whatever job I could get, I took. I think it's important for the youth of today to begin to understand that they're not going to get anywhere if they don't get educated, that if they don't stay in school, there is nothing in the world that's going to get them ahead.
What was your biggest accomplishment?
I think my biggest accomplishment was to survive this assimilation into America, to be a Americano. We're Americans, but we are also ethnic groups. I'm a Puerto Rican, but I'm an American. I knew my rights. I read the Constitution. I spread it to all the young people. Know your rights as an individual, because it's very important when it comes to how you feel about yourself. I suffered a lot of discrimination, and I learned to channel it into sports. So I went into football, and the minute I put a uniform on, I felt that I could hurt other people with rules and a team structure. So when I was a weaver, I probably was the first native-born Puerto Rican to play football. And I was good at it. I still have records there. I don't like to talk about myself, but here I have to establish that I worked so hard even at football to get scholarships. I went on to UConn. I played for UConn. I got a bachelor's degree in English because I wanted to master English. I got a master's in Spanish because I wanted to master Spanish. So in a way, I was following my identity. I didn't realize this crisis would lead me to education, and tutoring kids in Willimantic led me to teach, and to teach led me to understand that youngsters drop out of school because they just don't have a feeling for that school.
And as a professional, do you believe your bachelor's degree is your success or your experience?
I think all of my experiences are very important in trying to identify what I became later on, and that's an educator who worked for students. I did not accept kids getting kicked out of school, so I became an administrator. I became an administrator to change the culture of the school. I went to Thomas J. Quirk Middle School in 1972, and I became a vice principal there, first native-born Puerto Rican there, and I was appointed to the board of directors at Hartford Hospital by Grasso and by Weicker and O'Neill. So I was entrusted with the public good. All the time I felt that trust is most important as you pursue education. Students look at you for the trust. A culture in a school has to be a feeling culture. At Cork Middle School, I introduced this culture called PULL, P-U-L-L, patience, understanding, and love lead to learning. We all work together effectively. We wanted to feel the school and have a trust in the school. So we displayed all student work. We participated together. We felt each other's hurts. And we were a school that felt something. When I saw my students getting kicked out of Hartford High, I said, I got to go up to Hartford High and introduce the culture of acceptance. They tell me, it's okay to flunk a few kids. I'm not understanding of that. It's like my brother George runs the San Juan Center in Hartford, and I always admired him because he believed the way I believe. If you see that story of a kid throwing starfishes into the ocean and somebody comes along and says, they're all going to die, and if the kid says one can be saved, that's the way I felt about students. I will try as hard as I could. If I could save as many, then I would do that. That was the biggest accomplishment I have inside, is that I've helped so many students. And now my rewards are when I see them working with families and they're pushing their young ones to go to school. I'm very happy about that.
What are you doing now?
I am trying to enjoy my granddaughters. I have fraternal granddaughters from one of my two daughters. I had a daughter that graduated from Harvard University. She was all Ivy League. She was the captain of the Harvard track team. She set a long jump record. She graduated with honors at Harvard, and then she went on to be a vice president of Travelers Insurance Company. She is one of the few women Latinos that is making a direction for other women. It's just the way I have felt when I've gone into anything, that you have to be number one if you're going to impress others, that you're real, you're a good role model, you're a positive role model. To me, being the first native-born Puerto Rican in Hartford to run a school gave me a great honor, but a lot of pressure. You cannot fail. The young people of today, they cannot give up. The thing that I don't like about, and I will say to them very directly, you've got to respect why generations of your family came here. They came here so you could make something of yourself.
Being an athlete, you think it was your biggest achievement, or the start of trying to help others?
I think being an athlete gave me an outlet. I think that George, my brother here, gives some of these youngsters with a lot of anger a feeling of quiet strength, that they're able to channel their anger, manage it. I felt sports did that for me, but up to a point where my high school, my last day at Thanksgiving Day, we played Hartford High, and there were over thousands of fans used to come to the games. I gave too much. I had concussions during the game. I passed out at the very end of the game. I walked the field and I passed out. I was in a coma at St. Francis Hospital. I spent like 20 days there, paralyzed on my left side. I recovered from that 3 years later. I went to UConn as a walk-on and played. That's all I knew. I knew when I walked on the field, there was acceptance. My family wasn't there because my mom raised us without a father. He died at 42 years old of alcohol. My older brother died of alcohol, cirrhosis of the liver. So I've lost family to that disease. I met my wife in college, and she changed my attitude. She was from suburbia. I was from the city. This is like a West Side Story. I was not accepted by the family. It took 7 years for a stupid Puerto Rican to be educated enough to say to the parents, I'm a smart Puerto Rican, can I marry your daughter now? And they accepted that. So we completed the other side of West Side Story.
What people in your life made a big difference?
My wife, I just explained that. She made a big difference in my life because I was now integrating suburban city My daughters were training in the city. Alexia was training track with Butch Braswell, who was a Black Panther, ex-Black Panther, and inner city strider. So she got to know the city environment and the suburban environment. My other daughter went to Carnegie Mellon Musical Theater, and she became, or she is now on YouTube as a Latino rock star. So I have two daughters that were educated very well, but one's gone through artistic, the ballet. She appeared in the Nutcracker with the Hartford Ballet Company, and she's been now has her own band.
What do you do for the students being a high school principal?
As a high school principal, I always explain to students every time we met. And we met for recognition purposes. We met for celebrating them. We would have assemblies celebrating all clubs. We were not discriminatory. It wasn't just athletes here and artistic clubs here. We all met together as a school. The culture was we accept everything we do. We also, at mid-year, we had what is called complaint sessions. I would have students come up to the mic and tell me what's wrong with the school. It's funny because I remember once when the girl came up and said, "Mr. Cruz, you're discriminatory toward girls." And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you don't come to the volleyball games girls have, but you go to the football games that the boys have." And I thought about it, and I came up and I said, when you play volleyball, it's during the week. I have work fair and I have adult school. I have to patrol. I have to secure the fact that you're having games that are not going to be disturbed. On weekends, I'm off, and they play football on weekends, so I'm able to go with my family to celebrate Hartford High on weekends, on my days off. So if you can play on weekends or talk to the organization, we might be able to do that. But they got an answer. I think it's important that students air out what they feel about the school. And that's what I contribute to them. I'm accessible, I'm visible. I'm at the school at 6:30 in the morning. I see them come off the buses, on the buses. If it's raining, I take my umbrella out and I try to give them shelter from coming in. So I gave them, I would say, also a pretty disciplinary environment because I was their shadow. I says, if your behavior messes you or someone else, your behavior goes out. I don't care what nationality or what group, or your behavior cannot hurt the school.
Okay, and being part of the board of directors of Hartford Hospital, what was your biggest accomplishment?
I think the biggest accomplishment is to represent all Hispanics, all Latinos in a very, very important place where service is the most important part of their giving. They do a lot of job opportunities, so I want to make the connection to jobs. And then I also got a mandate from Governor Gross, I think it's Governor Grosso, yeah, to look at the unionization of Hartford Hospital. At that time, there was no unions at Hartford Hospital, so we had a gentleman that worked with me. We studied the whole environment, and it came out that Hartford High was a very feeling hospital, and I was doing very well without the union at that time.
Being a high school principal, what students came as a really good players and continue pursuing that dream?
Oh, we had a lot of students. I can't even begin to. I remember we had Marcus Camby was a very professional player, but he was a Conard, and they would play him during basketball season, and he didn't get his grades up, so he went to Hartford High to see if he could play. I says, you're going to have to be benched a year because you got to get your grades up. I never would allow a student to think they're bigger than they think they are. So we nurtured him, and even after school, I would play games against him, and he became a good student. Kendrick Moore grew out of Hartford High experiences and became a good speaker, although he was very shy to speak at anywhere. But he's honed his skills. He's worked with the community, and he's given back to the community. So these are just a couple, but there's many academic students that came through. The Malafat sisters in my head. I can't think of as many as I'd like to.
Anything else you want to say to the students or the people that are seeing us at this moment?
I definitely, when I keep emphasizing that the generations that brought us here, that worked blood, sweat, and tears to get us to America, and then they had children, and now this is the population that we depend on. Yes, we're elderly. I am 76 years old, but that does not mean that we can't work together. Millenniums are young people now that are into the digital age. It's not reading, writing, arithmetic. It's also the internet, the digital age, the iPads, the cell phones. I say to them that pay more attention to the human element of life. Pay more attention to the people that love you, because those are the people you are going to have to depend on. So give back to them and be a good son, a good daughter, a good grandfather, a good grandmother. Give back to them.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here, and see you later.